So I thought of the Phoenix Suns as an afterthought in the bubble. And obviously I was wrong on that one, because they won all 8 of their damn games. And unfortunately the rest of the season gave them too big of a hole to climb out of, but they did something insanely impressive, and it's got to make you think a little bit more about what this team looks like going into next year. I mean, the level of togetherness that they showed, the defense, not fouling, and also just doing the simple things like boxing out and transition defense, things that plagued the Suns for years, they have figured out. Their defensive rebound percentage was in the middle of the league, which is a lot different from years past. They were the 6th best team in the league when it came to assist-to-turnover ratio. I think Ricky Rubio definitely made a difference there. And I think Monty Williams just deserves a lot of credit establishing those fundamental things. Because again, before this season, you could look at the talent of Phoenix and everything, but they basically had no chance to win because they were just last in the league on all the things that you just have to be good at, between boxing out and not turning the ball over all the time and just basic stuff like that. So kudos to Monty there. I mean, the culture of the team was definitely on display in these 8 games, but even so, it felt like they were a little more together even as they kind of lost out on the momentum from the first 10, 11 games of the season or whatever. It should be said, they also didn't have Aaron Baines in these 8 games, and I think there was a moment where it was like, is Aaron Baines kind of the MVP of the Phoenix Suns, and they were able to do it without him. They also didn't have Kelly Oubre, who was their 3rd leading scorer, so that's big as well. Or actually, he was number 2 by 0.5 points over Ayton. Speaking of DeAndre Ayton, his record this season was 20 and 18. That's of course positive, and he definitely showed up defensively in the bubble. I don't think he was a dominant force offensively. There were definitely more than a few games where he didn't really score much, and I think that goes back to the fact that he just doesn't shoot that many free throws because he's not physical enough around the rim a lot of the time. He wants to take those like hook shots or mid-rangers or whatever, but defensively he's improved. I think it's always going to be an interesting thing, this push and pull of what Phoenix wants to do with a whole bunch of threes and all that stuff and running the floor all the time versus just getting the ball to Ayton in the post. Not that I don't think Ayton can run in the fast break or whatever, he's a pretty athletic big guy, but it's just, will Phoenix be willing to do that? You know, it's like, hey, let's not run our 9 millionth Devin Booker flare screen or pick and roll. Let's like get the ball to Ayton right now. I don't know. I think that's going to be an interesting thing, but defensively Ayton has certainly stepped up, so we give him credit there. I think his potential as a passer is remaining pretty good. He had a 4-assist game in the bubble, a couple 3-assist games. He did attempt some threes in the bubble as well. We've been waiting for that one a little bit, I would say. I think it's fair to expect that Ayton can make outside shots. I mean, his form looks good and all that stuff, so good free throw shooter as well. So I feel like Ayton is still kind of a wait-and-see guy, but he's making progress on the biggest question in his game, which was defense, so that's good. If we move on to Booker, I mean, nothing Booker did in the bubble was that surprising, really. I mean, he averaged 30, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, was, really efficient. Like, he basically just continued his regular season. Like, the reason the Suns have had problems has never been because of Devin Booker, so I just viewed it as he did his thing and everything around him just got better. I think an interesting guy to talk about for Phoenix is Dario Saric, whose contract is up, and we'll have to see if they want to keep him. But I think what we saw in the bubble is the way that you've got to use Saric if you want the most out of him, which is you gotta kind of let him work a little bit, Like, he had a few more possessions in the pick and roll. He had some post-up opportunities. He only shot 2 threes a game. Like, Saric is not, or at least he doesn't want to be a stretch guy who just sits in the corner all day. Like, he wants to do something on offense, He wants to take the ball himself. Even just having him set some screens and then get momentum going to the rim. Like, that's what he wants to do. He's not really a a Ryan Anderson type of guy. And he was really good in the bubble. I mean, 15 points, 7 rebounds. His assists were not very high. I do think Saric has potential as a passer. But we'll have to see if Phoenix is willing to keep allowing him to do that. I think it was a little easier for him to get those possessions because Oubre was not in the bubble. And again, given that Saric is a free agent, I don't totally know what the right answer for him is. I would imagine on the open market he might get like, I don't know, $10 million a year or so. So we're going to have to see. I mean, I'm not even certain what Phoenix's starting 5 is going to be next year, because the starting 5 they went with in the bubble was Booker, Ayton, Rubio, Cameron Johnson, and Mikal Bridges. Is Oubre going to come off the bench next season? I imagine not. I assume Cameron Johnson gets pushed to the bench and then Oubre goes in there. And then I think that makes it a little tougher for Saric. Like, can Saric really thrive on this team? Because I fear once you get Oubre back in there, and Oubre likes to take his shots, that Saric may be reduced once again to guy who stands in the corner too much for his own liking. I guess one potential thing you could do if you wanted to go this route is you could basically choose Saric over Baines, and you could just hope that Saric can cut it as a center, mainly playing against backups, and then he can play the 4 next to Ayton sometimes. I actually don't think that's a ridiculous idea. I mean, if Saric was a starting center, it probably wouldn't go that well, but I assume against backups he could probably make it work. I don't think that's too insane to suggest. But then I guess it comes down to how crucial do you think Baines is for this team? And to be fair, there's a world in which I'm wrong and they can keep both of these guys, and Oubre can come back, and Saric can still get his possessions off the dribble. That might just be too many guys. But speaking of Baines again, I mean, he's been hurt 2 years in a row, basically. I mean, I guess in the bubble he could have played, but they didn't want to throw him out there because it would have messed up the flow or whatever. But I mean, look, he played 50 games for the Celtics. Even without the bubble, he still missed a lot of games with the Suns. And, he's about to be 34 if he's not already. I don't know, man. I mean, he's certainly not going to cost much to keep, and he was pretty big for them when he was healthy, but I'm just saying, I don't know how much Aaron Baines you're really going to see if you re-sign him. Now, I will admit, before the bubble, I thought a guy like Millsap would have made a lot of sense for them. Just a defensive 4 who can do some stuff on offense for you, who hopefully wouldn't cost too much money. But now I kind of think a guy like that might just slow them down too much, but it is still an interesting thing. I mean, should Phoenix look to just re-sign some of their guys, or should they look to bring in someone else? Because they do have some money to play with. I mean, we assume their draft pick is, a $4 or $5 million guy. That takes you to about $98 million, and the salary cap was originally going to be $115, so there's something there. I think securing the backup point guard position is pretty important for them. Maybe that just comes from campaign. I mean, he certainly had a great bubble, and he's only going to make like $1.9 million next season, so that could be a pretty cheap option for you. There is Ty Jerome, who barely played. Javon Carter is a point guard as well. So, I mean, there's some options. I think among the available point guards this upcoming season, I think DJ Augustine would be a great backup for them, because he's been pretty damn good in Orlando. Granted, he still scores like 9 points a game, but for what they ask him to do, he's been good. Perhaps, is Reggie Jackson a scary thought? It's probably a little too scary. I wouldn't do it if I was them, but there's some guys out there who are available if you want a backup point guard. I forgot about Eli Okubo and this whole thing as well, so there's a lot of candidates. It's just a matter of somebody stepping up and being the security for them when they don't have, Rubio in the game. Now, it should be stated, of course, they're going to have an opportunity to do this through the draft pick. The lottery is on Thursday, and the odds suggest that Phoenix is going to get either the 10th or the 11th pick. Although their odds to jump up into the top 4 are not minuscule, Like, they've got a 4% chance of getting number 4. Like, given what we've seen out of the new lottery, I wouldn't put anything past. Like, someone is going to jump up, and Phoenix could be that team. But the odds suggest they'll get 10 or 11. So we'll see what they do with that. I guess the thing that I'm still hung up on is the idea of using their cap space to sign a power forward who gives them a little bit more size and some more defense. I don't think Jeremy Grant is really going to be available. I think Denver is going to view him as a must-re-sign guy. And, I mean, do you think Bobby Portis could be the difference maker? I don't know about that one, so. Unless you think Millsap is just too old or potentially going to be too expensive, maybe you might get like a JJ Redick sort of contract. Then the names just might not really be out there. Of course, I also just don't want to see Marcus Morris playing with the Suns, so. Yeah, I don't know, man. I guess the reason I keep thinking about that power forward is because I just don't know, like, where is Ayton going to end up as a defensive player? I mean, I know it seems like I'm just going to keep doing this thing until he becomes like a defensive player of the year candidate, but I don't know. I just kind of want to see it. We saw it for stretches in the bubble. We'll give that to him. I don't know, man. I mean, we've seen guys like Vucevic, Valanciunas, whoever else kind of make it work on defense. So there's probably a chance that Ayton's going to be fine on that side of the floor. I guess I just get back to Ayton's offense as well, though. Like, Ayton, he's just kind of got to be a dominant force, and he's got all the tools to do it. It's just a matter of being physical as hell and getting those free throw attempts up. I mean, he basically had 4 underwhelming offensive games in the bubble. And I still kind of feel like for all the nice things we can say about Phoenix, and I mean, they went nuts in the bubble, no doubt, and they won all 8 of those games without Ayton being a force every single game, but I still believe over the long run it does really come down to him. Because, I mean, in the bubble, the Suns just shot insanely well from the field. Like, they shot 49% from the field. They shot 40% from 3. They shot 90% from the free throw line. Like, those things are not going to maintain themselves over regular seasons. It's just not going to happen. So I think Ayton's just kind of got to be the guy. That or Kelly Oubre goes to some 20-point scorer level. He was having a bit of a season for them. He averaged like 18 a game or whatever. But yeah, I still think a lot of it comes down to DeAndre Ayton. I do want to make note of Mikal Bridges, potential super 3-and-D guy. I mention his alien arms every time I talk about him, and I'm going to do it again here. I guess the last thing to do is to project the Western Conference playoffs, which I did in a video, but I didn't. That video wasn't good. I totally forgot about OKC and whatever else. So, looking at the postseason a year from now, the postseason, which is impossible to predict because we don't know what the hell's going to happen in the offseason, what rookies are going to be amazing next year, all that stuff. We don't know. Injuries, but what else am I going to do? So, the wild thing about the West next year is there's too many teams trying to make the playoffs. It's just the way it goes. Like, there's going to be a couple of teams that are above 500 that probably don't make it. I mean, looking at it right now, so the 8 teams that made the playoffs this year in the West, safe to say they're all going to be back in contention next year. If the Blazers are healthy, then they could get pushed up higher into this. The Warriors are going to be back into the mix, so that's 9 teams right there. And then between the Grizzlies, Suns, and Pelicans, now we're up to 12 teams. The Wolves are at least going to give an effort. I don't think they've got a real shot. It's going to be tough, man. I mean, are the Suns going to be an elite offensive team? It's possible, if Ayton gets the free throw attempts up there. Are they going to be an elite defensive team? I would err on the side of no, but I think they could be good. So then the other question is, can they be very good at both? I suppose that's possible as well. I mean, it's going to be a big jump. You're talking about going from 34 wins this season to, 44, 45? I mean, I feel like if you're making me come up with a yes or no answer right now, I would go with no, but I also didn't think they would have any sort of a chance in the bubble, so I'll just say I'm going to predict no, but I think they will be one of those teams making the playoff race next year really interesting. So, yeah, man, Phoenix, it's a great bubble. It was a great bubble, and we'll have to see what's next.